I was not in the market for a new PC. Honest.
You're such a liar. You're always on the market.
No. I'm always ready to buy, not on the market. I will say, yeah, I was thinking what to do because I have a big desktop PC that is a big power-hungry thing. And I thought, it's a nice little machine. And my intention was I wanted a little machine that would sit beside me here on the desk. When I'm doing the show, I just wanted something really simple that I could just have my notes on, with, away from the main broadcast machine I've got, just literally separated out so that I could work away and get my notes and check my files as we go through. And I can check that I'm on the right folder and all the rest of it, when we're doing the show.
There's notes, listeners.
I know that. But
saying.
No, I know
There's
that.
Notes.
That's not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a note taker. I've got a Mantis Q40 sitting here that could do that. That's not what I'm looking for.
Listeners may be surprised to know that we do have notes on every episode.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I surprised myself at that. Yeah. A few people have said that to me already. There's notes? But yeah, we do occasionally have notes. And, I certainly, when we're going through the feedback, the way I do it is I have the emails in a folder and I go through them one by one so I know who's coming up next. Otherwise, I just press a button, randomly a voice will start playing. I mean, that could happen as well. And that would certainly make it more interesting, arguably.
Yeah, why not?
But
roulette.
Yeah, that's right. Voicemail roulette.
So let's just hang on a second.
Yes.
You want a separate PC because why?
Well, look,
why is it separate? Why does it need to be separate?
The
Why
system
can't you run
I'm
it
using,
off one?
The system I'm using for broadcast is not. I don't want to touch that when it's doing its thing. Right? I want to leave it alone because I guarantee you I will stop the recording or I'll do something that I shouldn't do.
Oh, for the wrong thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it's a case of let that machine do its own thing. The broadcast machine does its thing. And, over here, I've got this little machine that I can just connect to. And I know that I'm safe in that world. If I close a file, it doesn't matter kind of thing. So that was my thinking. And I thought, okay, I'll get something. I don't really want a laptop sitting on the desk because it's not enough space to do all that. So I thought, okay, I tell you what I'm going to look into. Because I keep getting ads on my Facebook feed for mini PCs. These little tiny computers. And when I watch reviews on YouTube about these, you often hear them from companies like B-Link. You maybe have heard of them. You might have heard of the name GEEKOM. Probably not heard of the company, but you've probably heard the name before because it does come up often quite a lot, especially around Amazon Prime Day. You'll sometimes see sales for like the B-Link mini PCs. And
that's what I've been seeing in my Amazon recently, and I looked into it because the hardware is getting better and better.
Well, the hardware is interesting. I don't know about better and better. It's getting interesting because the price point is interesting. And when you're thinking about, I want to buy something good, I don't want to waste my money, what can I go for? What are the options that are out there? Well, the mini PC seemed like an interesting idea, but the problem was all the YouTube videos were kind of presenting it as ideal for a server or, maybe something that would work in a workplace. Stock traders apparently could use these things. People who wanted to use them for media servers, that kind of thing, right? And I thought, but how does it actually behave as a computer? Is it any good? Like, what's in this thing? I mean, you look at the specifications, you see that it's got Intel, often i7, i9 processors, AMD top 7 or 9, AMD Ryzen 5, 7, and 9 processors in there. And you think, okay, that's interesting. 16 gig of RAM, often minimum. You get 512 SSD, goes right up to 2 terabytes. There was one I saw that was on sale, had an Intel Core i9 with 32 gig of RAM and 2 terabyte hard drive in it.
Oh, stop it.
And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And the price point was really interesting. And, great discounts and all that. And I'm thinking, but there's got to be a catch here. There's just got to be a catch. Now, look, what you're buying is a mini PC, and very much like buying a Mac Mini, right? You're buying a box, that's it. You're not getting a keyboard, you're not getting a mouse, you're not getting a monitor, you're getting none of that stuff. You're buying a box that you have to bring your own devices to, the BOYD as they used to call it, bring your own device. Okay, I can live with that because I've got 8 billion keyboards, so I think I'll be all right. No issue with that. Don't really need a monitor. What I did buy, though, was an HDMI dummy, which I can put into the computer to trick the computer into thinking it's got a monitor attached, which is handy. And you do need that when you're using services like either a remote desktop or even remote desktop connection, remote incident manager, for example. Those are really important to have because the computer needs to think it's got a display so that it can display something to the other device. Well, yeah, and I've been learning this the hard way, especially with Ira, trying to connect with them. If you don't have anything connected to that HDMI, they can't see anything. They can't see anything on the screen.
I've heard that issue before. Was it WhatsApp? Strangely enough,
WhatsApp wouldn't work. That stopped. That did stop after a while.
They fixed that.
They did fix it, but there was a period where if you went to the WhatsApp app with nothing connected to the HDMI, you would not be able to get anything from WhatsApp at all. You'd think it might be minimized, but it wasn't. It was just even maximized. It was a blank window as far as it was concerned. I'm sure that'd be the case with other apps as well. But so looking at all the different options that were out there, I thought, well, okay, you know what I'm like, right? I'm going to look straight to the top end of the market. What's the best I can get? And then I thought, okay, hang on. Bear in mind what I'm buying this for. The application is to be basically a really simple note-taking machine, right? It does not need to be powerful.
Running Notepad and File Explorer, basically.
Exactly. So what do I need here, right? I'm not even going online with it. I don't need to. Let's look at the cheapest option. And so I did. I looked at an option which came in at 439 Canadian dollars, which is about £289 UK. And it's the GEEKOM A5 Mini. Now, this is a tiny little machine. I mean, this thing is so small. It's smaller than a Mac Mini.
Oh, are you listening, Apple?
I know.
Oh,
They managed it.
Outdone. Quick question before you carry on, because when I think of a mini PC, I think of those almost USB flash drive, pen drive like an Amazon Fire TV stick with an HDMI port on one end that you plug straight into the back of a TV. They were very big a while back, but we're not talking about that. When we say mini PC, we are actually talking a separate Apple TV-like square, but a small box, right?
Very similar idea, yeah. You're kind of talking about, I'd say, I mean, if you can think of it, the new Mac Mini, if you've had hands-on with the new Mac Minis, which are those small, little boxes, then that is very similar. Other than the rounded edges and it being a little bit smaller, I mean, it's got square edge and it is smaller, but it's pretty much the same footprint as the Mac Mini. And this is a tiny little machine. And, when you get out of the box, you're kind of like, wow, this is incredible. I was actually really surprised, if I'm honest, at the quality of it. I was kind of expecting it to be really cheap and plastic, but it's not. It's got a metal casing. It's very sturdy. And the higher the range you go, you can, I think the top end one, you can put up to 200 kilograms of weight on top of it if you wanted to, and it'll hold. Which
Run it over.
Yeah,
okay.
If you wanted to, okay. So they're well built, right? They come with it comes with a separate power supply, not a USB-C power supply, which kind of annoyed me because I kept thinking I could use this on the move. But no, it's got your kind of traditional type connector, you might say, that kind of rounded little connector that goes into the back of the...
A DC pin connector.
DC pin, that's exactly it. Yeah. So that goes into the back of it. In terms of connectivity, you have tons of ports. On the front, you've got 2 USB ports. One of them is power delivery as well. They're both USB 3.2. You've got an SD card slot as well on the side, which is pretty cool. Full-size SD card slot on the side. And on the back, you've got a mixture of different things. You've got 2 HDMI ports, interesting. You've got 2 USB 3.2 ports, and you've got 2 USB-C ports as well, and a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port. That's interesting.
That's quite high spec, a 2.5 gig Ethernet port.
And, bear in mind the price here, right? So on the side as well, you've also got a Kensington lock if you wanted that as well. I guess that's in business, that's quite popular. At home, I don't really worry about anyone stealing it. Although in saying that, the size of it, you do kind of think, wow.
Well, if I come round, I'll be straight in my pocket. You better lock it down.
I was honestly, I was really excited when I opened up the box. I'm thinking, this is really nice. It feels nice. The ports are amazing. Feels sturdy. Solid on the desk. And so I hooked everything up. I know, but these things matter, right? I didn't want to buy some piece of garbage. Don't. Well,
I'm thinking?
No, hang on though. You said to me before I got this, you said your concern around this was the parts, was the structure of this thing. How good is this going to be? And when I was looking at the reviews, I saw one review that said, I've had this for 6 weeks and it just died.
Yes.
And I had to send it back. And the reason I didn't stop at that point was because I thought, well, look, I've had machines that cost a lot of money and they just died. So I'm not overly concerned. One machine in many, I mean, every other review was fairly glowing. So, I was taking it off that. But yes, please, continue.
No, I don't care, what the actual specs are. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care the build quality even, because I wouldn't expect much for that sort of price. What I care about is, can it run my screen reader without stuttering and falling over?
Yeah, 100%. And, that's the next part of this, right? But I will say, I think that the design matters because it shows the care and attention to detail. I've seen computers that come along that cost more than this that don't feel as solid as this thing. And it is a desktop computer, so that's something to bear in mind. Although I'm going to talk a little bit about that later because I have to tell you, GEEKOM, by the way, are going to bankrupt me. I am telling you right now. But anyway, the switched the thing on. I haven't hooked a monitor to it, obviously. I'm not going to do that. So I had my HDMI dummy connected first, powered it all up. I used a pair of USB-C earpods, connected them up, powered the thing on, power button on the front, by the way, not underneath, stuck up, the inside of the machine, which is hard to get to by anybody. Properly on the front, next to, by the way, a 3.5mm headphone jack. Good to know. Hooked. I used the USB earpods though, and got the thing started up. About a minute into the startup, I heard the startup chime from Windows, and I was able to immediately start Narrator. I connected my PC via a 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle. I could have connected it up by a cable, but I chose just to use the dongle I'd already set up on the other computer. So just took it out of that, put it into the GEEKOM machine, and that basically connected up the keyboard right away. So there's no issue there either. And so instantly, that's me. I'm in. I had Narrator on, and I set up the machine. No issues there. No issues with Narrator. No issues with login or setup at all. Entirely without a screen. I was very impressed with myself more than anyone else.
Well done.
And then I did what every good computer user does: immediately download Chrome. Immediately go and download NVDA or JAWS, your chosen choice. I chose NVDA for this one. And I downloaded NVDA onto it, got it running. And I'm telling you, I've had it running now for, what are we talking, maybe I want to say 5 days. Got all my apps installed. I have been using it. I have not had one stutter, one issue, one error, one problem. It has been a delight to use. And when you talk about screen reader stutter, I mean, this thing is so quick to respond to everything I'm doing. I am very impressed. I'm excited by it. I am amazed at what I've got for £289.
Well, let's quickly talk about what processor did you get for that money? Because you've mentioned the i9s, the i7s, which is sort of the high-end range. So what did you get for this?
Well, I chose to go down, I picked this one in particular because I didn't want to go down the Intel route. To me, Intel's great if you want to fry an egg. I don't need an egg cooker. I wanted a computer. And so I decided to go down the AMD route. I went down the route and I got a Ryzen 7 because that was the deal I could get. I got an AMD Ryzen 7, I want to say 5825. I could be totally wrong there, but I think that's the number of it. And it's got a U at the end. And apparently what that signifies is it's a mobile processor. In other words, it's a laptop processor in there. It's not a full desktop processor. You might be able to explain better than I can what that actually means.
Well, it used to make a big difference because the difference between a desktop class and a laptop class or a mobile processor was the amount of power that it would draw from the system. Obviously, if you're running it on a laptop, you don't want to kill that battery in an hour. So you want it to draw less power, which used to mean that it was far less powerful. Less energy going in meant that it couldn't perform as fast. So there was always a big difference between the desktop class, which is plugging into the wall and drawing as much power as it wanted, could hurtle along doing whatever you needed it to do, and a laptop processor. I've got to say, that seems to be less and less the case now. As processors are heading towards all of them, no matter if it's desktop or laptop, sipping as less power as it possibly can anyway, because it helps control the amount of heat, so you don't get those fans screaming at you. It doesn't throttle down because the processor's too hot. So I think there's far less of a divide between those laptop and desktop class processors now. And look, generally, the laptop processors are a little bit slower than the desktop class, but I don't think it's become much of an issue anymore. And from what you're saying, definitely not.
Well, I mean, I've been using a Lenovo ThinkPad for, a good while now, years, actually. I mean, probably the best part of 5 years I've been using that Lenovo. And every time I power it on, every time I do anything with it, it's absolutely fine. I mean, the desktop, I've had more issues with, if I'm honest. I don't know if that's down to specific hardware within it. It's an HP, and by all accounts, that's the worst possible desktop computer I could ever have bought, based on everyone I've ever met who tells me that. So, okay, fine. But I have to say, I often think how fast is enough. And at the end of the day, if it performs well enough to do the things I'm doing, which is basic web browsing, which is using NVDA, various add-ons on top of that, if I'm, using Audacity to edit audio files, I mean, again, it's doing all of that with ease. I'll tell you what was most interesting. I was downstairs. I was relaxing in my big chair, as I have now decided I want to do more of because it was so relaxing. And I was sitting there with my Lenovo. I was using Remote Incident Manager to connect to that machine. So using the machine upstairs, connected to it. I was actually initially setting it up, but then decided to carry on working on it. I was even editing audio with zero lag. I mean, I'm talking zero lag here. Now, of course, there's a couple of combinations here that's important. If you're using a laptop, you're using a keyboard that's connected, right? It's wired in. If you're using USB-C earpods or even 3.5mm AirPods, whatever you're using, essentially if it's wired, if the headset you're listening through is wired, then that connection is solid. So you're going to reduce all the chances of lag. If I had introduced, say, wireless Bluetooth earbuds and a Bluetooth keyboard into the mix and tried to do that remotely on a laptop, it may have felt like there was more lag. So the more you can reduce the lag, the better. And you can do that by being wired. Of course, the keyboard's in there, your headset's wired, so that reduces it to some degree. But connecting over a network in the same house. I mean, I wasn't outside. I was in the house. So I'm connected to the same Wi-Fi, but I was remoting into that machine using a third party through Remote Incident Manager. It was solid. I was genuinely blown away.
There's nothing quite like it when it works well, being able to remote in and work on something like you're sat in front of that computer that's in another room or somewhere else. You're absolutely right. When I do an edit sometimes in the living room on a laptop, I think, I'll just quickly do this. I use a Bluetooth headset and it's laggy. And that's not a network thing. That's just the nature of Bluetooth, right? It's really difficult, but you can work around it. But the fact that you're connecting over a network, we should also say you've got a very high quality network. So, other people's experiences may be slightly different.
Not on this particular occasion. Both machines were wired. They were on Wi-Fi. Both machines were on Wi-Fi. Yes. They were not wired in. I do have a fast internet connection. That's for sure.
You do.
I've got a 3 gigabit internet connection. So yes, that's big. But I was connected via Wi-Fi, which of course is capping it to some degree. What type of 600 meg? So, or whatever it is, 600, I can't know whether it works out bad. But basically it's a lot less. And I was using the Amazon Eero for Wi-Fi. So, that's fairly standard. That's a
beautiful, beautiful system you've got there, Stephen Scott.
Which, by the way, I think we can both agree is probably the most accessible, out of the box anyway, the most accessible mesh Wi-Fi network system you can get.
It's the best one I've ever owned.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely amazing. Look, I tell you why I'm surprised by this, because my experience of using something like this, I'm talking to the old school now. You remember the netbooks back in the day? Those tiny, tiny laptops, and they were, but the form factor, absolutely amazing. You could stick it in your inside jacket pocket almost, and now, as soon as you turn a screen reader on that, it
was horrible.
That was it. Gone. Absolutely useless. Absolutely useless. And to my experience, a lot of these mini PCs, which is why I mentioned the sort of the dongle style ones in the past, which I have looked into, exactly the same issue. And a lot of that was down to the processor, the Atom processors, the Ion processors that Intel had back in the day, just couldn't handle a screen reader. I think this is really interesting that you've actually took the dive into this, because it does prove, the performance now, we're on another level. And this is possible for that sort of price. You've got a fully functioning, accessible Windows PC.
And it doesn't have a screen, right? So who cares? I mean, it's a desktop computer. It doesn't need a screen for me. A lot of people out there are going to be listening to this who don't care about having a screen. I do recommend the HDMI dummy. I haven't tried it without it, so I can't say it may well work absolutely fine, but I didn't want to take the chance.
It'll definitely set up.
Yeah.
You can go through the setup without anything being connected, so that's not a problem.
But it's like $2 for an HDMI. It costs nothing. It's like nothing.
Yeah, and it does give you that extra. Well,
and look,
why do you say...
here's the cool thing, right? If you really wanted to, you could have a second monitor connected, or a monitor connected to it as well, because it has 2 HDMIs in it. I've never seen that before. I mean, that's amazing to me.
Well, you mentioned the brand name there. What's it called, and how do you spell it? GEEKOM?
It's GEEKOM, GEEKOM, GEEKOM.
GEEKOM. Okay.
And the one the one I chose was the A5. Now, there are many types out there, and there are cheaper ones. You can get ones that are even cheaper than the one I got. I chose to go for this, A, because it was on a deal, and I wanted it, and that was that. But also, I just kind of felt the specifications kind of lived up to what they would call office ready, like an office machine. It'd be very, good. Honestly, I think this is probably more powerful than it's even giving itself credit for. I think it's a really powerful little machine. And the size, the footprint, the fact that it is the ideal blind person's PC because, you can hook it up. You don't need to have a screen or anything connected to it, I think is great. And the price point means it's accessible to way more people.
And I believe, although this may have been the other brand that you mentioned, which I did look into, I mean...
B-Link,
D-Link, B-Link?
B, as in... B. Busy Bee. As in...
Busy B-Link.
One of them. Earth dies if we don't have them. One of those.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. God, you always got to take it to a dark side, haven't you? That's one I keep seeing in my Amazon deals lately. Mm-hmm. They start even cheaper than that. And from what I can tell by the specs, even those would be, absolutely fine for your screen reader use. So, yeah, it's a really interesting time at the minute with these.
I'm really impressed. And like I say, in the box, you've got all the things you need. I mean, you get an HDMI cable with it as well, which some computers, you don't even get that these days. I don't think you get that with a Mac Mini at all. Obviously, you have the power block. It is a brick that comes with it, and then you can connect the other half of that to the wall. So it's got a separate, I think it's your standard kind of kettle lead type thing.
Yeah.
And then you also get with it a VESA mount, which allows you to, if you do have a monitor, you can actually just attach it to the back of the computer, the back of the monitor. You can basically make it all into one. So it turns a monitor into an all-in-one PC. So that's kind of cool.
I want this in a keyboard.
Well, that's it. This is the thing. Yeah, exactly. Well, but this is the bit that kind of makes it interesting, right? It's almost like they've kind of designed. I mean, that's the size of it, really. It's the size of your traditional kind of, VESA mount, 100 by 100. It's amazing. But the ports as well, just having all that there. I've got to say, I was very impressed. And the usage of it, I mean, I'm using it now. I've not gone back to my big PC desktop at all. I've turned that off. I was intending to use this as a secondary, little machine to just be doing a couple of things around, note-taking and, using File Explorer. And now I'm thinking I could use this as my main everyday machine, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, no, it is very cool. I looked at some of the reviews for these types of machines, and as you mentioned, a lot of them are using them as either a NAS server, just connect a load of hard drives, again, because of the low power usage of this sort of device. But so many people, because of the power of the device, are using them for a Plex server, or a Jellyfin is the other open source version of a media server. I stood on
one of those once. They sting.
Jellyfin.
Oh.
So you put all your, your Blu-rays or whatever rips onto there, or your audiobooks or whatever, and you can access them from anywhere. And the reason people are using the power of these is because it can transcode it. So I don't need 4K on my iPhone, little tiny screen, so transcode it into a smaller resolution to send it over the network. And because of the power, it can do that. And it works really well from all the reviews. Now, that's not really something I'm interested in, but it just shows me that it's capable. And from what you're saying, it just proves it.
The other thing, of course, with the AMD processors is they do run warm. They all do. I will say, though, that it has not heated up particularly much at all. I've been quite impressed by that. You do hear the fans spin up from time to time, but it's very quiet. You'd have to listen to hear it. If you're on a Zoom call, for example, and as I was yesterday for a couple of hours, you can't even hear it. You would have no idea that it's there. If you're recording a podcast with it next to you, it wouldn't bother you in the slightest. It's a very quiet little machine. So very impressed by it. I will say, as I mentioned earlier, GEEKOM are probably going to bankrupt me, because whilst I was on the website looking up the prices this morning, in particular for our Canadian listeners, because I wanted to look at the pricing there, pricing is actually almost comparable in some ways with the UK pricing, which is very unusual. With some of the higher ends at the moment, you can get this pretty much the same. Depending on the one you go for, you can pretty much spend the same amount of money in the UK to Canadian in terms of the actual number. So you actually save money in Canada by buying it there. So that's interesting. But they also have accessories, and that's the bit that's worrying me. They have GEEKOM accessories. You can buy a carry case. You can buy a case for it.
Oh, okay. You love a carry case, I've got to say. Can you get a battery pack so you can...
I tell you, I'm hoping that comes, because this would be my on the move machine. I'm telling you, I think about the stuff we do when we go out and about, and I'm thinking, I would take this with me. I would set this up. I could set a little box up with all my stuff in it, including this and my Rodecaster, and our microphones. We could just have it all on the move and just this nice little setup. Amazing.
You can buy USB to DC pin cables, right? But then you got to get the right size, the right polarity. It's not quite as easy as that, but yeah, plug everything into the back of it. I'm sure you'll be fine. You won't break it, Stephen Scott.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? No, look, this is cool. And they are, if you are interested in the higher end, oh yeah, they can serve that as well. They've got some interesting stuff apparently coming out later in the year. They have so I've got the A5 Mini. They've got the A9 Mega.
What's that, size of a shed?
So the A9 Mega is very much more, I would say, like the size of the older Mac Mini. So it's a bigger footprint. But it is, I mean, you should look it up, honestly. The specifications on it are just ridiculous. We talk about tops when it comes to AI, and bear in mind, this is probably being built to be used as a device to run AI, as in to run a large language model on itself. So that's what these things are kind of being built for. I mean, of course, you can buy it and use it for anything you want, but that's what they're kind of being designed for. We talked, I remember when Microsoft, and I didn't understand all this, but I remember when Microsoft Surface came out, they were talking about the processors in them having, was it up to 45 tops? And that was a big deal back then. Well, this thing runs 126 tops. So, that sounds good to me.
Is that trillion operations per second?
That's
or something
the one.
Like that?
Yeah. That's a lot.
It is a lot. So how many computers do you need?
I'm not saying I'm not buying one. I'm just saying I'm advising you on what is available. That's all. Absolutely, I have not bought one, and you can't buy them anyway because they're not out yet. But that price, by the way, I didn't see the Canadian pricing on that, but it's £1,900, so it's a bit more considered.
Okay,
but you can
That's
spend
not a consumer device.
You can spend $1,000 Canadian dollars. And you could get yourself an AMD Ryzen 9 processor or an Intel Core i9, and you're going to get 32 gigabytes of RAM and up to 2 terabytes of storage on there. So, for the price you're paying, I feel like you're putting the money, I think for blind people, we're putting the money into what we're actually interested in. The power, the storage, the RAM. These are the things that matter when it comes to a performance PC for us. So we're not paying for fancy design or 4K screens, OLED, touch screens, glass touchpads, all that stuff we're not paying for. We're not paying for that with this. The money is going to the things we actually would need. And that's why I think these are great for blind people.
You're absolutely right, because what I'm finding now is with the sort of premium laptop or desktop, whatever the computer may be, it's all about the graphics cards. You are paying a lot on top of that for a graphics card that I don't honestly care about. So yeah, if you can just focus in on, I want the processor performance and I want the memory and the storage. That's all I really care about. And you put the money in there, then yeah, you are absolutely right. I want one of these now. You're a terrible person.
I remember having a Dell XPS 13-inch laptop, and it was the worst machine I ever used with a screen reader. And I remember sending it back because I said, I just can't use this thing. It's constantly having problems. There were driver issues. There were problems all over it. And, I'm thinking, I start this thing up, no issue at all. Now, look, I'm not saying there's no issues anywhere at all. I will no doubt come across them. And I'll keep you up to date as I go. But I am genuinely excited by this. I love the fact, even alone the 2.5 gigabit, as I've got a 3 gigabit internet now, I can actually get use out of that on that machine. And I don't have to add any extra hardware to it. Which again is a miracle in itself. It's really future proof.
I'm going to say it. All right, I think we can part that. You love it. Okay, very good.